The day aliens learned why humanity still uses outdated weapons. The bridge of the Earth spaceship Resolute was quiet, save for the low hum of machinery and the occasional beep from the control panels. Captain Elena Ward stood at the center, her posture rigid but composed, a picture of unshakable authority. Around her, her crew worked diligently, though their nervous glances toward the main display revealed the tension in the room. There, dominating the screen, was the alien fleet. The ships were sleek, angular marvels of technology, their hulls glinting with an almost hypnotic iridescence. They moved with a predatory grace, circling the asteroid belt like sharks closing in on their prey. "Captain," Lieutenant Connor called from the communications console, his voice tight. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship." Elena tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Let's see what they want," she said, stepping forward. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered, and an alien figure appeared. Its skin shimmered like polished silver, and its 4 golden eyes surveyed the humans with an air of superiority. Its voice was cold, calculated, and laced with mockery as it began to speak. "I am Supreme Commander Thalvox of the Xylorian Dominion. Your vessel has been scanned and found lacking." Thalvox's lipless mouth twisted into something approximating a sneer. "Tell me, Captain, why does humanity persist in using such primitive weaponry? Railguns, coil guns, missiles. These relics of a bygone age are laughable in the face of energy-based technology." Elena didn't flinch. She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow, her expression calm. "We've found our methods effective enough," she replied. "But I'm sure you have a fascinating lecture prepared about how outdated we are." Thalvox's sneer deepened. "Your kind clings to the past because you lack the intelligence to advance. The Xylorian Dominion offers you a single opportunity to surrender. Kneel before us, and we may allow your people to serve as a vassal species under our enlightened rule." The tension on the bridge thickened. Elena glanced at Lieutenant Connor, who had gone rigid at his post. She returned her gaze to the alien commander, her expression unreadable. "That's a generous offer," Elena said slowly. "But here's the thing. We don't kneel." The sneer on Thalvox's face faltered for a moment, replaced by something closer to anger. "You will regret this decision, Captain. Your arrogance will doom your people." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Elena turned to Connor, her calm demeanor unchanged. "Status report." "They're moving into attack formation," Connor said, his voice steady now. 7 ships, all armed with high-yield energy weapons. Their shields are fully operational. "And ours?" Elena asked. "Online," Lieutenant Ramirez replied from the tactical station. "But against their firepower." He trailed off, his hesitation speaking volumes. Elena's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's fine. They've underestimated us, as expected." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. "Captain," Connor ventured, "if their weapons and shields are as advanced as the scans suggest, how do we plan to?" "They're advanced, yes," Elena interrupted, "but they're also predictable. Every energy shield we encountered has the same flaw. It's designed to counter other energy weapons. They think kinetic weapons are obsolete, so they never prepare for them." Ramirez straightened in his seat, his eyes narrowing as realization dawned. "You're saying our weapons might actually—" "Might," Elena said with a smirk. "No, they will. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we let them think they have the upper hand." As if on cue, an alarm blared. "Incoming fire," Ramirez shouted. "Energy beams targeting our forward shields." The ship shook as the first volley struck, but the shields held firm. Elena remained calm, her gaze fixed on the main display as bright streams of energy lit up the void between the 2 fleets. "Damage report," she said. "Minimal," Ramirez replied. "Shields are holding, but they won't last long against sustained fire." "They won't have to," Elena said. "Ramirez, prepare the railguns. Target their lead ship's engines." Ramirez's fingers flew over his console. Railguns ready. Target locked. Good, Elena said. She turned to Connor. Open a channel. The lieutenant hesitated but obeyed. Channel open, Captain. Elena stepped closer to the main display, her voice cool and steady. Commander Thalvox, I couldn't help but notice your fleet's impressive display of firepower. It's truly dazzling. Thalvox's face reappeared on the screen, his golden eyes narrowing. You mock us at your peril, Captain. Surrender now, or be annihilated. Elena's smile didn't waver. You seem very confident, Commander. Almost as if you've never faced an enemy who thinks differently than you do. Thalvox leaned closer, his expression darkening. Your bravado is meaningless. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. We'll see, Elena said. She gestured to Ramirez. Fire. The railguns roared to life, their projectiles slicing through the void faster than the eye could follow. The Xylorian lead shields flared, struggling to absorb the impact. But the kinetic force was too much. The shields buckled, and the projectiles tore into the ship's engines, leaving it dead in the water. The bridge of the Resolute erupted in cheers, but Elena remained focused. Ramirez, target the next ship. Connor, monitor their response. Thalvox's face returned to the screen, his composure shattered. This is impossible. How? Surprise, Elena said, her tone icy. Humans don't play by your rules, Commander. The screen went dark as Thalvox cut the transmission, and Elena allowed herself a small smile. Let's remind them why we kept the old ways, she said. Ramirez, fire at will. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the crew of the Resolute felt hope. Their so-called primitive weapons had just leveled the playing field, and humanity's ingenuity was only getting started. The alien fleet's shock and humanity's hidden ace. The silence on the bridge of the Resolute was heavy as the alien lead ship drifted, its once dazzling lights flickering dimly in the void of space. The Xylorian fleet had stopped firing, their movements hesitant. Captain Elena Ward didn't allow her crew a moment of celebration. Victory wasn't secured yet. Status report, she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. Lieutenant Ramirez, his fingers flying over the tactical console, responded. The lead ship's engines are completely disabled. The other vessels are holding position. They're scanning us, likely trying to figure out how we bypassed their shields. Good, Elena said, her lips curling into a faint smirk. Let them stew. Lieutenant Connor turned from the communication station. Captain, they're transmitting again. Thalvox looks furious. Elena raised an eyebrow. Put him through. The main screen flickered, revealing Supreme Commander Thalvox's face. His regal composure was gone, replaced by raw anger. His 4 golden eyes glared at Elena with an intensity that might have been intimidating under different circumstances. This is a violation of all known principles of warfare, he thundered. Your weapons should not have been able to penetrate our shields. Elena's smirk grew wider. Oh, I'm sorry, Commander. Did we break the rules of your little game? You'll have to forgive us. Humans aren't great at following rules we didn't agree to. Thalvox's nostrils flared, and his silver-blue skin seemed to darken. You cannot win this battle, Captain. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. Whatever trick you used will not work again. Elena tilted her head, feigning curiosity. Is that so? Well, you're welcome to try and prove it, but I'd recommend checking the status of your other ships before you get too confident. Ramirez, catching her cue, activated a second volley of railgun fire. The projectiles streaked through the void, slamming into the Xylorian ships with pinpoint accuracy. Another ship's shields faltered, then collapsed under the relentless barrage. The kinetic rounds tore through its hull, leaving it crippled alongside its leader. Thalvox's image wavered as his ship's systems struggled to compensate for the sudden damage. His expression shifted from anger to something closer to fear. You've weaponized simplicity, he muttered, almost to himself. Exactly. Elena said, her tone turning sharp. You call our weapons primitive, but they work. Your arrogance made you blind to the idea that we could fight on our own terms. You've underestimated humanity, and now you're paying the price. The transmission cut abruptly as Thalvox terminated the link. Elena turned back to her crew, her expression hardening. Connor, keep monitoring their comms. Ramirez, prepare the railguns for another volley. Let's keep up the pressure. Yes, Captain. They replied in unison, their earlier tension replaced with determination. The Xylorian fleet began to reposition, their elegant formations breaking as they scrambled to adapt. Energy beams lanced out from their remaining ships, but the attacks were erratic, lacking coordination. The Resolute weaved through the assault with precision, its kinetic weapons firing in controlled bursts. Captain, they're focusing on evasive maneuvers, Connor reported. It looks like they're trying to regroup. They're buying time, Elena said. They'll either retreat or call for reinforcements. Ramirez, target their communication ship. Let's make sure they don't get a chance to call for backup. The Resolute turned sharply, its railguns swiveling to lock onto the sleek, elongated ship at the rear of the Xylorian formation. Ramirez fired, and the projectiles streaked through space. The Xylorian ship shields flared brightly, absorbing the first few hits, but the relentless assault quickly overwhelmed them. The final volley struck the ship's communication array, sending sparks and debris spiraling into the void. Target neutralized, Ramirez confirmed. Their long-range communications are offline. Elena allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. Good work. Now, let's finish this. Before she could issue her next command, Connor spoke up. Captain, we're detecting energy fluctuations on the lead ship. It looks like they're overloading their core. I think they're preparing a self-destruct. Elena's eyes narrowed. A last-ditch attempt to take us out with them. Typical. She turned to Ramirez. Focus all fire on the lead ship's core. If we can disable it before they detonate, we might be able to salvage the situation. The railguns fired again, their deafening roar reverberating through the ship. The projectiles struck the lead ship's hull, tearing through its weakened defenses. The Xylorian vessel shuddered violently as explosions rippled across its surface. Core destabilized, Ramirez reported. It's going critical. Connor, get me a channel to Thalvox. Now, Elena ordered. The alien commander's face appeared on the screen, his once pristine uniform scorched, and his expression desperate. You think you've won, Captain. If we fall, we will take you with us. Elena's voice was cold. No, you won't. Stand down, Thalvox. Evacuate your crew and abandon your ship. I don't want to wipe you out, but I will if I have to. For a moment, Thalvox said nothing. Then, slowly, his shoulders slumped. You've proven your point, human, he said, his tone bitter. But this is not over. The Xylorian Dominion will not forget this insult. The screen went dark, and Connor turned to Elena. Captain, they're evacuating. The lead ship is still going critical, but the rest of their fleet is retreating. Ramirez, prepare a jump to safe distance, Elena ordered. Let's not stick around for the fireworks. The Resolute pivoted and accelerated away from the battlefield, its engines humming as it prepared to enter faster than light travel. Behind them, the Xylorian flagship detonated in a brilliant burst of light, its energy waves rippling outward like a dying star. As the ship entered the safety of FTL, Elena leaned back in her chair, letting out a slow breath. The crew around her erupted into cheers, the tension of the battle finally breaking. We did it, Connor said, his voice tinged with awe. We beat them. For now, Elena said, her gaze distant. But this isn't over. They'll be back, and they'll be smarter next time. Then we'll just have to outsmart them again, Ramirez said with a grin. Elena nodded. That's what we do. Humans adapt, and when they come for us, we'll be ready. The bridge settled into a quieter hum as the Resolute streaked toward safety, leaving the wreckage of the Xylorian fleet behind. Humanity had faced the Dominion's arrogance and won. But this was just the beginning of a much larger fight. The Xylorian Empire's retaliation plan. The atmosphere on the Resolute's bridge was a mixture of relief and unease. The crew had proven that humanity could hold its own against an alien superpower. But they all knew this victory was only the first move in a much larger game. Captain Elena Ward paced along the command deck, her mind racing with calculations and contingency plans. "Captain," Connor called from the communications console, breaking the silence. "We're picking up residual chatter on encrypted Xylorian frequencies." Elena stopped and turned, her sharp gaze locking onto him. "Let's hear it." Connor tapped a few keys, and a garbled transmission played over the speakers. It was faint and distorted, but fragments of the alien language were decipherable. The AI translator worked furiously to process the data before a clipped robotic voice began reciting the translation. "Emergency priority. All Dominion forces. Retaliation required. Planetary coordinates identified. Eliminate human threat." A chill ran through the bridge as the meaning of the message sank in. Elena's jaw tightened, and she looked to Ramirez at the tactical station. "How long until their reinforcements can reach us?" Ramirez analyzed the data streaming across his console. "Judging by the strength of their FTL signatures, we estimate their closest reinforcements could arrive within 48 hours. Maybe less if they're pushing their engines." Elena took a deep breath, her mind already working through possible scenarios. "Connor, get me a secure line to Earth Command. They need to know what's coming." Connor nodded and set to work, while Ramirez leaned forward in his seat. "Captain, do you think the Xylorians will target Earth directly?" "They won't just target Earth," Elena said, her voice grim. "They'll try to make an example of us. They need to reassert their dominance. If we don't act fast, they'll bring their full force down on every human colony in the sector." Connor turned back to her. "Earth Command is on the line." Elena stepped toward the center console, where a holographic image of Admiral Carver materialized. The grizzled veteran looked as though he hadn't slept in days, his stern face lined with concern. "Captain Ward," he greeted her. "I've been briefed on your engagement with the Xylorian fleet. Excellent work out there." "Thank you, Admiral, but we don't have time to celebrate," Elena replied. "We intercepted a transmission indicating that the Xylorians are mobilizing reinforcements. They've marked Earth and our colonies as targets." Carver's expression darkened. "Do you have an estimate on their arrival?" 48 hours, possibly less," Elena said. "We need to act now. If they're bringing their full fleet, we won't be able to hold them off with standard defenses." The Admiral nodded, his mind clearly racing. "What's your recommendation, Captain?" Elena straightened her posture, her voice firm. "We need to hit them before they hit us. Take the fight to their staging grounds, disrupt their supply lines, and buy time for Earth to reinforce its defenses." Carver rubbed his chin, considering her proposal. "It's a bold move, Ward. If we engage them on their turf, it could escalate this conflict into a full-scale war." "We're already at war, Admiral," Elena countered. "The only question is whether we fight it on our terms or theirs." After a long pause, Carver nodded. "I'll authorize a strike team. The Resolute will lead the operation. You'll have the full support of the fleet's resources." "Understood," Elena said. "We'll prepare immediately." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the crew with a renewed sense of purpose. Elena turned to her team, her voice commanding. "Connor, set a course for the coordinates of their nearest staging ground. Ramirez, begin weapons diagnostics. I want every railgun and missile system operational by the time we arrive." "Yes, Captain," they replied in unison. The Resolute launched into FTL, its engines humming with power as it raced toward its next challenge. Elena knew the odds were stacked against them, but she also knew humanity's strength lay in its adaptability. The Xylorians might have advanced technology, but they lacked the one thing humans excelled at: thinking outside the box. A surprise waiting at the staging grounds. Hours later, The Resolute emerged from FTL at the edge of a distant star system. The Xylorian staging ground was a massive orbital station, bristling with weapons and surrounded by a fleet of smaller support ships. The station's sleek design and glowing energy fields exuded an aura of untouchable power. "Captain, we're being scanned," Connor reported. "They've detected us." "Let them," Elena said, her tone calm. "Ramirez, prepare a long-range missile barrage. Target their supply depots and fuel reserves. We're going to light up their resources." As Ramirez executed the orders, the station began to stir. Xylorian ships powered up their weapons and formed defensive formations around the station. The Resolute launched its first salvo, a volley of missiles that streaked through the void and struck their targets with precision. Explosions rippled across the station's exterior as fuel tanks erupted, sending plumes of fire and debris into space. Direct hits on their supply depots, Ramirez confirmed. Their fleet is scrambling to respond. "Good," Elena said. "Let's see how well they fight when they're disorganized." The Xylorian ships surged toward the Resolute, their energy weapons blazing. Elena directed her crew with calm precision, maneuvering the ship through the chaos and returning fire with devastating accuracy. The railguns roared, punching through enemy shields and crippling their ships one by one. But even as the Resolute dealt blow after blow, Elena knew they couldn't sustain this fight indefinitely. The Xylorian station was still operational, and reinforcements could arrive at any moment. "Captain, their fleet is regrouping," Connor warned. "We're outnumbered." Elena's mind raced. They needed to strike a decisive blow before they were overwhelmed. Her gaze fell on the station's glowing central core, a pulsing sphere of energy that powered its defenses. "Ramirez, target the station's core," she ordered. "All railguns and missiles. Focus fire." The Resolute unleashed its full arsenal, the projectiles and missiles streaking toward the station's heart. The Xylorians scrambled to intercept, but it was too late. The combined firepower struck the core, and the station erupted in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippled outward, disabling the remaining Xylorian ships and leaving them adrift. The Resolute pulled away, its engines straining as it escaped the blast radius. "Status report," Elena called. "We're clear," Ramirez said, his voice shaky but triumphant. "The station is destroyed, and their fleet is crippled." Elena allowed herself a brief moment of relief. "Good work, everyone. But this isn't over. The Xylorians will regroup, and they'll come back stronger. We need to stay one step ahead." As the Resolute disappeared into the depths of space, its crew knew they had won a critical battle. But the war was just beginning. The Xylorian Empire strikes back. The victory at the Xylorian staging ground had bought humanity precious time, but Captain Elena Ward knew it came at a cost. The Xylorians would not take the destruction of their fleet and station lightly. As the Resolute moved through the vast expanse of space, the crew prepared for the inevitable retaliation. On the bridge, the air was thick with anticipation. The hum of the ship's engines seemed louder than usual as the crew worked in near silence, their focus unwavering. Elena stood at the center, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic star map. "Captain," Connor called from the communications console, "we're intercepting another transmission. It's heavily encrypted, but I'm working on decoding it." "Put it through as soon as you have it," Elena said, her voice calm but firm. "Ramirez, status on our weapon systems. All railguns are operational, and our missile reserves are at 70%, Ramirez replied. "Shields are at full capacity, but they won't hold against sustained fire if the Xylorians send a larger fleet." "They will," Elena said, her tone unwavering. "They can't afford not to. The Dominion thrives on fear and control. If we show them to be vulnerable, they'll go to any lengths to crush us and reassert their dominance." Connor looked up from his console. "Transmission decoded, Captain. It's coming from a Xylorian command ship." "Let's hear it," Elena said. The speakers crackled to life, and the cold, imperious voice of Supreme Commander Thalvox filled the room. To the human vessel Resolute, your actions have not gone unnoticed. You have inflicted damage upon the Dominion, but it is a fleeting victory. Your defiance will be punished, and your species will pay the ultimate price. Elena smirked slightly. Same song, different verse, she muttered. Thalvox continued, his tone dripping with disdain. Even now, our forces gather. You cannot hide. You cannot run. Surrender your vessel, and we may consider sparing your people from total annihilation. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in a heavy silence. Ramirez shook his head. He really doesn't like us. Elena turned to her crew, her expression steely. We've rattled them. They're trying to intimidate us because they know we're a threat. But we're not going to give them what they want. Connor, track the origin of that transmission. I want to know exactly where their command ship is. Connor's fingers flew over his console. Got it. The signal originated from a fleet gathering at Sector 9 Gamma. It's a heavily fortified region. But if we hit them now, we might catch them off guard. Elena nodded. Set a course. Ramirez, prepare for an ambush. If they want to play this game, we'll make sure they regret it. The ambush. The Resolute emerged from FTL just outside Sector 9 Gamma. The Xylorian fleet was massive. Dozens of ships arranged in a tight formation around the command ship, which bristled with weaponry and shields. It was a daunting sight, but Elena didn't flinch. Scans indicate multiple layers of shields around the command ship, Ramirez reported. Their other vessels are equipped with long-range energy cannons. We'll be in the line of fire the moment we move closer. Understood, Elena said, but they're expecting us to attack head-on. We're going to do the opposite. Connor, send a signal to our stealth drones. Have them deploy decoys to draw their fire. Connor relayed the orders, and moments later, a swarm of decoy drones launched from the Resolute's hangar. The small, cloaked devices emitted energy signatures identical to the Resolute, scattering in all directions. As expected, the Xylorian ships began firing, their precision disrupted by the overwhelming number of targets. They're taking the bait, Ramirez said, a hint of admiration in his voice. Good, Elena replied. Ramirez, target their flanking ships. Take out their support vessels one by one. We're going to dismantle their formation. The railguns roared to life, and the Resolute weaved through the chaos, its projectiles striking with deadly accuracy. Xylorian ships exploded in bursts of fire and debris, their shields unable to withstand the kinetic force. The once tight formation began to break apart as the Xylorian fleet scrambled to regroup. Captain, the command ship is repositioning, Connor said. It's moving behind their remaining ships, using them as a shield. Cowards, Ramirez muttered. Elena's eyes narrowed. They're trying to protect their leader, but we're not going to let them hide. Ramirez, prepare the missile barrage. Target the command ship's engines. Yes, Captain, Ramirez replied, his fingers flying over the controls. The Resolute launched its missiles, the glowing projectiles streaking toward the massive command ship. The Xylorian fleet fired frantically in an attempt to intercept, but some of the missiles slipped through, slamming into the command ship's engines. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the area, and the command ship lurched to one side, its propulsion systems crippled. They're dead in the water, Connor reported. Not yet, Elena said. They'll still have weapons and shields. Ramirez, prepare for a direct assault. Connor, open a channel to Thalvox. The alien commander's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mix of rage and disbelief. You dare to challenge the Dominion's flagship, he snarled. Your insolence knows no bounds. Elena stepped forward, her voice cold and unwavering. This is your last chance, Thalvox. Surrender now, or we'll finish what we started. Thalvox's golden eyes burned with fury. You will not leave this sector alive, human. The Dominion will prevail. Elena's lips curved into a small, icy smile. So be it. The Resolute surged forward, its weapons blazing as it closed the distance to the command ship. The Xylorian flagship retaliated with a barrage of energy beams, but the Resolute danced through the onslaught, its railguns and missiles tearing into the alien ship's hull. A turning point. As the battle raged, the Resolute's crew fought with unwavering determination. Despite the overwhelming odds, they chipped away at the Xylorian fleet, their precision and strategy outmatching the enemy's brute force. Finally, with a final railgun salvo, the command ship's shields collapsed. The Resolute's missiles struck the ship's core, triggering a massive explosion that lit up the void. The remaining Xylorian ships hesitated, their morale shattered. "They're retreating," Connor called. "The fleet is withdrawing." Elena watched as the Xylorian ships fled, her expression unyielding. "Let them go. They'll think twice before underestimating humanity again." As the Resolute moved away from the wreckage, its crew erupted in cheers. But Elena remained focused. This victory was a turning point, but the war was far from over. "Set a course for Earth," she ordered. "We need to prepare for what comes next." The Resolute disappeared into the stars, leaving behind the ruins of the Xylorian fleet, and a message that humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity's bold plan. The victory against the Xylorian command ship sent ripples across the galaxy. Humanity had proven it wasn't the weak, primitive species the Dominion believed it to be. On board the Resolute, however, there was no time to celebrate. Captain Elena Ward knew the battle was a warning shot compared to what the Xylorian Empire was preparing. The ship hummed as it sailed through FTL toward Earth. The bridge crew was focused, their movements sharp and deliberate. Elena stood at the center, her mind already formulating the next step. "Captain," Connor called from the communications console, "Earth Command is requesting an immediate update. They've been monitoring the battle reports and want to discuss our next course of action." Elena nodded. "Put them through." The holographic image of Admiral Carver materialized, his weathered face set in a grim expression. "Captain Ward, excellent work dismantling the Xylorian fleet. Your efforts have bought us time, but we can't rest yet." "I understand, Admiral," Elena replied. "The Dominion will regroup. If we're going to keep the upper hand, we need to take the fight to them again." Carver leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Agreed. Intelligence suggests that the Xylorians are preparing a counteroffensive at their central command hub. It's a massive orbital fortress located in the Helios Rift, a region known for its gravitational anomalies." Elena's eyes narrowed. "The Helios Rift. That's a dangerous place to navigate." "Exactly," Carver said. "The Dominion likely believes the region makes their command hub untouchable, but we have an advantage. They won't expect us to strike so soon after our last engagement." Elena straightened her posture. "What's the plan, Admiral?" Carver's hologram gestured, and a star map appeared, highlighting the Helios Rift and the Xylorian command hub. "We've identified weak points in their defenses. The fortress relies on a network of gravitational stabilizers to maintain its position. If we disable those stabilizers, the fortress will be torn apart by the Rift's gravitational forces." Ramirez, listening intently, turned to Elena. "Captain, targeting those stabilizers will require precision. One mistake, and we could get caught in the rift ourselves." "We don't have a choice," Elena said. "Admiral, I assume the Resolute is leading the strike." Carver nodded. "Yes, you'll have a small task force accompanying you, but stealth is paramount. If the Xylorians detect you too early, the mission will fail." Elena's jaw tightened. "Understood. We'll be ready." The Helios Rift. The Resolute dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Helios Rift, accompanied by two smaller Earth vessels. The rift was a swirling expanse of cosmic chaos, with gravitational eddies that twisted space itself. In the distance, the Xylorian command hub loomed, a massive structure bristling with weapons and surrounded by patrol ships. "Scans complete," Ramirez reported. The gravitational stabilizers are located along the station's perimeter. They're heavily shielded and guarded by automated turrets. Elena studied the holographic map of the station. We'll need to create a diversion. If we can draw their patrols away, we'll have a window to disable the stabilizers. Connor spoke up. Captain, the stealth drones worked well during the last engagement. We could deploy them again to simulate a larger fleet. Elena nodded. Good idea. Deploy the drones and set them to emit false energy signatures. Ramirez, prepare targeting solutions for the stabilizers. I want precision strikes. The drones launched, scattering across the rift and emitting signals designed to mimic Earth ships. As expected, the Xylorian patrols broke formation, moving to intercept the supposed fleet. They're taking the bait, Connor said. Patrol ships are moving away from the station. Perfect, Elena said. Ramirez, target the first stabilizer. Fire when ready. The Resolute's railguns roared, and the projectiles streaked toward the station. The first stabilizer erupted in a shower of sparks and debris, its shields unable to withstand the kinetic force. Direct hit, Ramirez confirmed. The first stabilizer is down. Move to the next target, Elena ordered. Keep the pressure on. The station fights back. The Xylorian station, realizing the deception, retaliated. Automated turrets sprang to life, their energy beams cutting through space as they targeted the Resolute. Evasive maneuvers. Elena shouted. Ramirez, return fire and take out those turrets. The Resolute darted through the chaos, its railguns and missiles striking with deadly precision. One by one, the turrets fell silent, clearing the way for the next phase of the mission. Captain, we've got incoming, Connor warned. The Xylorian patrols are returning, and they're bringing reinforcements. Elena's mind raced. They couldn't afford to get bogged down in a prolonged battle. Ramirez, focus all fire on the remaining stabilizers. We need to finish this before those reinforcements arrive. The Resolute fired again, its projectiles slamming into the second stabilizer. The structure buckled under the assault, and the station began to shudder as the gravitational forces of the rift took hold. Second stabilizer destroyed, Ramirez reported. The station is destabilizing. The final push. With the station collapsing, the Xylorian ships surged forward in a desperate attempt to protect their command hub. The Resolute and its allies fought valiantly, their weapons blazing as they held the line. Captain, the last stabilizer is heavily shielded, Ramirez said. It's going to take everything we've got to break through. Elena nodded. Divert all remaining power to the railguns. This is our last shot. The Resolute unleashed a final devastating volley. The projectile struck the stabilizer with incredible force, shattering its shields and ripping it apart. The station convulsed, its massive structure collapsing as the gravitational forces of the rift tore it to pieces. Stabilizers are down, Ramirez confirmed. The station is falling into the rift. Elena watched as the Xylorian command hub was consumed by the swirling chaos. The remaining Xylorian ships, leaderless and disorganized, fled the battlefield. We did it, Connor said, his voice filled with awe. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Not yet. Set a course back to Earth. We bought ourselves some time, but this war is far from over. As the Resolute disappeared into FTL, its crew knew they had struck a critical blow against the Xylorian Dominion. But the road ahead would only grow more treacherous. Earth's last stand. The Resolute emerged from FTL into the orbit of Earth, where a fleet of human ships was already preparing for what they all knew was coming. The Xylorians had suffered a humiliating defeat, but they would return. And when they did, it would be with overwhelming force. Earth's defenses were on high alert, and every ship, satellite, and ground installation was primed for war. Captain Elena Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her hands clasped behind her back. The holographic display of Earth's fleet filled the room, a testament to humanity's resilience and determination. Yet Elena knew it might not be enough. Captain, Connor called from the communications console. Earth Command is requesting a strategy briefing. Admiral Carver is waiting. Elena nodded. Put it through. The familiar hologram of Admiral Carver materialized, his expression as grim as ever. Captain Ward, the situation is escalating. Our intelligence confirms that the Xylorians are mobilizing their largest fleet yet. They'll arrive in less than 24 hours. Elena's jaw tightened. Do we know their target? Earth, Carver said bluntly. They're coming to end this war once and for all. The weight of his words settled over the bridge like a shroud. Elena glanced at her crew, each of them standing a little taller despite the grim news. They'd fought too hard to give up now. What's the plan, Admiral? She asked. Carver gestured, and the display shifted to show Earth's orbital defenses and fleet positions. We'll form a defensive perimeter around Earth, with key strike groups positioned to intercept their fleet as it exits FTL. Your ship will lead the primary strike group. Elena nodded, her mind already calculating probabilities. Understood. If we can disrupt their formation early, we'll have a chance to turn the tide. That's the idea, Carver said. But be prepared for the worst. If their fleet breaks through, Earth's survival will depend on every second you can buy us. The calm before the storm. As the crew of the Resolute prepared for the battle, the atmosphere aboard the ship shifted. Conversations were quieter, movements more deliberate. Everyone knew what was at stake. Ramirez stood at his console, running diagnostics on the railguns for the third time. They're ready, Captain, he said. Every railgun, missile system, and shield generator is operating at peak efficiency. Elena nodded. Good. We'll need everything we've got. Connor looked up from his station. Captain, I've compiled a list of potential weak points in their fleet formation. If we can target their command ships early, we might be able to throw them into disarray. Excellent work, Elena said. Share it with the other strike groups. Coordination will be key. As the hours ticked by, the crew settled into their positions, waiting for the inevitable. Elena took a moment to stand by the viewport, gazing at the blue and green orb of Earth. It was a sobering sight, a reminder of what they were fighting for. You ready for this, Captain? Ramirez asked, stepping up beside her. I don't think anyone's ever ready for a fight like this, Elena admitted. But we don't have a choice. If we fall here, humanity falls with us. The Xylorian fleet arrives. The moment came with a ripple of space-time, as the Xylorian fleet exited FTL just beyond Earth's orbit. The ships were massive, a sea of iridescent vessels bristling with weapons. At the center was their flagship, a towering behemoth that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen. Xylorian fleet detected, Connor reported. Scans indicate over 50 ships, all heavily armed. Elena straightened. Battle stations. Ramirez, target their lead ships. Connor, relay fleet positions to Earth Command. The human fleet moved into action, forming a defensive line around the planet. The Xylorians wasted no time, their energy weapons lighting up the void as they opened fire. The first volley struck hard, but Earth's orbital defenses held. Return fire, Elena ordered. The Resolute's railguns roared, sending projectiles hurtling toward the Xylorian ships. The kinetic rounds punched through their shields, crippling several vessels. Direct hits on their forward ships, Ramirez confirmed, but they're regrouping. Elena's mind raced. The Xylorians were adapting faster than she'd anticipated. Their ships began to form a wedge, aiming to break through the human defenses. Captain, they're targeting our command ships, Connor warned. Elena gritted her teeth. Not if we target theirs first. Ramirez, focus fire on their flagship. Bring it down. The Resolute surged forward, its weapons blazing. The flagship retaliated, its energy cannons unleashing a barrage that rocked the human ship. Shields at 60%. Ramirez called. We can't take many more hits like that. We won't have to, Elena said. Connor, deploy the decoy drones. Let's make them work for it. The drones scattered, confusing the Xylorian targeting systems. The Resolute weaved through the chaos, its railguns finding their mark. The flagship's shields flickered, then failed. A desperate gamble. "Captain, the flagship's core is exposed," Ramirez reported. "One good hit could take it out." Elena's heart pounded. If they could destroy the flagship, it might break the Xylorian fleet's morale. But the Resolute was dangerously close to its limits. "Ramirez, divert all power to the railguns," she ordered. "This is our chance." The ship's weapons hummed with energy, and the railguns unleashed their final volley. The projectiles struck the flagship's core, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, the core detonated in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Xylorian fleet faltered, their formation collapsing as panic spread through their ranks. "They're retreating," Connor shouted. "The Xylorians are pulling back." Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Elena remained focused. "Monitor their movements. Make sure they're not regrouping." The human fleet held its ground as the Xylorians vanished into FTL. For the first time, it seemed humanity had truly turned the tide. The aftermath. As the Resolute returned to Earth's orbit, the crew allowed themselves a moment of relief. The battle had been won, but the cost was high. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, and the threat of the Xylorians still loomed. Elena stood before her crew, her voice steady. "We've proven that humanity can stand against the Xylorian dominion, but this war isn't over. We'll keep fighting, not because we want to, but because we have to. For Earth. For our future." The crew erupted into applause, their spirits lifted by her words. As the Resolute prepared for its next mission, one thing was certain: humanity would not back down. Humanity's defiance. The battle for Earth had ended in a hard-won victory, but the scars of war were evident everywhere. Orbital stations were in ruins, ships drifted in pieces across the void, and the human fleet was battered but alive. Captain Elena Ward knew that while the Xylorians had retreated, the war was far from over. On board the Resolute, repairs were underway. Sparks flew as engineers worked tirelessly to patch hull breaches and restore critical systems. The hum of activity filled the ship, but the crew remained focused. They all understood the stakes. "Captain," Connor called from the communication station, breaking the momentary stillness on the bridge. "We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Carver." Elena nodded. "Put him through." The holographic image of Admiral Carver appeared, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes sharp. "Captain Ward, congratulations on holding the line. You and your crew have done extraordinary work." "Thank you, Admiral," Elena replied. "But we both know this isn't over." Carver sighed. "You're right. Our intelligence reports that the Xylorian Dominion is regrouping. Their fleet suffered a major blow, but their empire is vast. They'll be back, and next time, they'll come with everything they've got." Elena straightened her shoulders. "What's the plan?" Carver's expression hardened. "We've identified the location of the Xylorian Dominion's central command station. It's deep in their territory, heavily fortified. If we can strike at the heart of their operations, we might be able to force them to the negotiating table, or at least cripple their ability to launch another large-scale offensive." Elena's brow furrowed. "A direct assault on their command center. That's a suicide mission." "It is," Carver admitted. "But it may also be our best chance to end this war before it escalates further. You've already proven the Xylorians can be outmaneuvered. If anyone can pull this off, it's you." Elena took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. "We'll do it, Admiral. Send us the coordinates and whatever resources you can spare." "Coordinates are being transmitted now," Carver said. "Good luck, Captain. The fate of humanity may very well rest in your hands." Into the heart of the Dominion. The Resolute set a course for the Xylorian command station, accompanied by a small elite strike force of Earth's most advanced ships. The journey was long and treacherous, taking them deep into enemy territory. as they neared their destination. The tension aboard the Resolute was palpable. "Captain," Ramirez said, his voice quiet but steady, "we've entered Xylorian space. Long-range scans show heavy patrol activity around the command station." Elena nodded. "Activate stealth protocols. We need to get as close as possible without being detected." The ships moved silently through the void, their cloaking systems masking their presence. On the main display, the Xylorian command station came into view, the colossal structure surrounded by a fleet of warships. It was a fortress in every sense of the word, bristling with weapons and defenses. "Scans complete," Connor reported. "Their fleet is massive, but their patrol patterns have gaps. If we time it right, we can get in close enough to disable their defensive grid." "Ramirez, prepare the railguns," Elena ordered. "Target their power relays. If we can take out their grid, their station will be vulnerable." The assault. As the Resolute and its strike force moved into position, the Xylorians remained unaware of their presence. The humans launched their first volley, targeting the station's power relays. The railguns roared, and the projectiles struck with deadly precision. Explosions rippled across the station as its defensive grid faltered. "Direct hits," Ramirez called. "Their defenses are down." But the Xylorians were quick to respond. Their fleet surged into action, energy weapons lighting up the void as they targeted the human ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena shouted. "Connor, deploy decoys. Ramirez, focus fire on their lead ships. We need to keep them off the station." The battle erupted into chaos. The Resolute weaved through the fray, its railguns and missiles punching through Xylorian ships with brutal efficiency. But the human fleet was outnumbered, and the Xylorians fought with desperation. "Captain, we've lost the Vanguard and the Intrepid," Connor reported grimly. "We're down to 5 ships." Elena's jaw tightened. "We can't stop now. Ramirez, target the station's core. If we take it out, the fleet will scatter." The Resolute surged forward, dodging enemy fire as it closed in on the station. The railguns fired again, and the projectiles struck the station's core, triggering a massive chain reaction. The turning point. The Xylorian command station shuddered as explosions tore through its structure. The once imposing fortress began to collapse, its wreckage spiraling into the void. The Xylorian fleet faltered, their formation breaking as panic spread through their ranks. "They're retreating," Connor shouted. "The Xylorians are falling back." Elena allowed herself a small, weary smile. "We did it." As the remaining human ships regrouped, the crew of the Resolute let out a collective sigh of relief. The Xylorian Dominion had been dealt a crippling blow, and for the first time, humanity had the upper hand. A new dawn. Back on Earth, the victory was met with celebration, but Elena knew the war wasn't over. The Xylorians would regroup eventually, but for now, humanity had earned a moment to breathe. Standing on the bridge of the Resolute, Elena addressed her crew. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity won't be intimidated, that we won't back down. This war has tested us in ways we never imagined, but we've proven that our strength lies in our resilience and ingenuity. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready." The crew erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by her words. As the Resolute sailed into the stars, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.